On today's show, how the Cavs lost to the Clippers. Thanks again for making Locked On Cavs your first listen every day. Remember, we are free and available wherever you get your podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA.
You are Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast.
All right, the music you heard on the way in is from our friends at Astro Radio. Check them out on Apple Music or Spotify. I'm Chris Manning. I cover the Cavs and the NBA large for places like Down UPROXX and SB Nations for the Sword. That man is Evan Dammarell. He is at Down Euclid and for the Sword as well. A couple things we're going to discuss today. Number one, how the Cavs lost to the Clippers. Number two, Evan Mobley's best offensive night in that game. And number three, the continuing Isaac Okoro discourse. This is coming to you a tad bit after the Clippers game. Here's why. I work a full-time job.
Yeah, I mean that's a valid reason at the end of the day.
I have to do this thing called sleep.
Yeah, I was up burning the midnight oil working on my Chandler Vosner feature for Down Euclid, which now has a website. If you guys are going to check it out, that's the new digital space as Meta's bulletin platform becomes dust in the cosmic cyberspace. So yeah, that's where my back catalog is now. But yeah, I was working on that feature and watching the game. And Chris, what were your thoughts with a clearer mind after being well rested and, not being stressed and pushed to your limits during your 9 to 5 today?
I found it to be a game that they probably will look back on and think they could have won in. At the same time, I tend to also think that there's some things where I think going through that, I think kind of structurally couple little things you can look at and say maybe you can look at this differently. Use this as a rep to go through this kind of stuff. I think that can make some sense, right? Like there was a possession late in the game where if Karis LeVert hits this stuck corner three, the game's probably over. It's probably like a little more kind of iced off in that moment. I wonder if in the future you say, okay, maybe we should try to get one of Garland or Mitchell in that corner as well as the shooter adjacent to the ball handler. And we can station LeVert kind of in a place where he could slash or he could catch a dribble above the break and then go on a dribble and attack that way. Like I wonder if you just structure things, you learn from that and try to organize things a little bit differently in certain instances to maximize your five and to stretch things out in that way. Because it's going to be hard to do that. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, this is the game, Evan, where Donovan Mitchell doesn't take a shot or score any points in the last 7 minutes. Like, you're going to have a hard time winning when the guy who's been so clutch for you this year just doesn't get going in that game. And this might be the only time this happens all year. But when it does happen, it is just going to be hard to overcome when your guy who's been automatic offense for you, even on a 30-point night, just isn't taking shots in the last 7 minutes. That's just reality.
I think, yeah, that is the reality of the situation, and I'm going to put a pin in that for a hot second just because I want to give my takeaways, but I do have a question in regards to Donovan Mitchell not scoring or really taking a shot down the closing stretch of the game. For me, at least, it was a lot of impressive individual performances. Like you saw Evan Mobley just kind of come out of his shell offensively, and he looked great, one of arguably his best game offensively this season, but, the foul trouble was probably frustrating for Mobley, and I think having him defend, stretch your bigs like Marcus Morris or even Nicholas Batum at times, and even Paul George in isolation. Like that's a tough ask no matter who you are, even if you're a second-year player. Like these things happen. And then you look at Jared Allen, almost broke his career high in rebounding, like with absolutely eating the glass and dominating things on the interior, but struggled at times offensively and was able to get it going in the second half, but too little too late. You look at Garland, who opened the game with 6 assists, and the Cavs were kind of humming on offense, but the Clippers were still hanging in it, and that was great. Donovan Mitchell, like you mentioned, was the high scorer for the Cavs. He's just been absolutely dynamic offensively, and you saw like his motor was just running hot even after the Cavs were on the second game of a back-to-back that night. And yeah, this is all individually impressive performances, but I think you saw when this game got tight, the youth and inexperience kind of reared its ugly head for this Cavs team. And you saw some of the cracks that maybe they will have to deal with as they're growing up in real time and maybe learning how to win and close these tougher games. And Chris, just to pass it back to you, because I know there's Isaac Okoro discourse, which we'll definitely sink our teeth into, whether we want to or not. But I saw folks going back and forth this morning before I just closed Elon Musk's new toy. That people were just like going back and forth on the fact that, like, hey, you probably shouldn't have the ball in Darius Garland's hands down the stretch of the game if you're trying to win. Maybe you go to Donovan Mitchell more, and it's kind of the piggyback off your original point. Like, it's a little like just disconcerting that he wasn't taking any shots. But if you're the Cavs and you have to put the ball in one of their hands, are you comfortable with Garland doing it? Because he did show some flaws last night when he was a little flustered by the defensive pressure the Clippers were throwing at him.
I think, yeah, I don't really have issues with that. I think you.
Neither do I, but it's a discourse that we have to talk about.
I mean, I think that I'm gonna say that that's a stupid discourse. Like, I think what when you're Garland and when you're Evan Mobley in particular, and like Mitchell has played in the playoffs every single year of his career. He has seen some of this stuff. He knows how to navigate some. Garland has to go through some of this. And look, the Clippers they're a Ty Lue coach team with lots of length and lots of wings. Like, that is the kind of team that can really fluster Darius Garland. Like, the Raptors game was not just like kind of maybe an off night. Like, that is something with Garland where he has to learn how to navigate length and deal with some of that at times. Like, that's just going to be a thing. But I think you want him to get these reps, right? Like, yes, in the fourth quarter, 2 assists versus 3 turnovers, only 3 points, 1 of 4 from the field, 0 of 2 from 3. He needs to get those reps. Like, if you're going to be the best Cavs team possible. Yes, I know people are so invested in the game-to-game, and I think the team is as well. And I'm not saying that, like, you being annoyed, if you're a fan and you're annoyed that they lost this game, that's invalid. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that, like, if you're playing
you can look at the last 2-minute report and get mad the day after because the refs did miss a few calls. It's silly stuff.
Stupid. If this team is going to be its best self come April and into May, it can't just be Donovan Mitchell takes over the last 4 minutes of every game. It can't be that. Darius Garland has to go through some of this stuff. Like, if you play Milwaukee in the playoffs and you want to give them your best shot possible, Drew Holiday and Javon Carter and like
Chris Middleton
and like they have all these and they've all but they have like the wings in particular, like Wes Matthews. Like, I know he defends bigger wings at times, like maybe he gets Garland. You're gonna have to navigate that. If you play the Celtics, you're going to get Brown. You're going to get Marcus Smart. You're going to get Derek White. You're going to get Brogdon. Like, you're going to get quality defenders thrown at you and length in some of these teams. You have to know how to navigate it. So I think you have to trust Garland as well. Like, it can't just be Mitchell doing everything himself. That's not how this is going to be sustainable. That's not why you get Donovan Mitchell. You get Donovan Mitchell, yes, to maybe finish in some ways. Garland is part of the finishing, though.
I agree with you. I think it's silly to kind of look at this, and I agree with you as well. Like, fans and just people in particular can get fixated on the micro points in this season, where you look at the macro sense of it. These are valuable reps for Darius Garland. I don't think you're going to see this become a repeated issue with him, where like he's just constantly choking in close situations, where you're saying, oh, he's the number 2 or number 3 option in the grand scheme of this Cavs team offensively. No, you want him to get these live ball reps, and maybe there's scenarios where you try to maybe figure out a little bit more of a balance where, like, we give Garland the shot, but if it's not working, we just turn the ball to Donovan a little bit and let him just try and cook offensively because he, like you said, is a tried and true proven scorer. It's just, I don't know. I'm not too pressed about this. If I'm the Cavs, I'm not too pressed about this loss to the Clippers. Yeah, it's disappointing your win streak came to an end. Yeah. It's probably just a frustrating way to see things go down where you kind of felt like the win was within grasp if you're Cleveland, but it's an 82-game season. It's the season didn't end yesterday in Los Angeles. Like, the Cavs have to gear up for Sacramento on Wednesday, then Golden State on Friday, and then head back home to wear their City Edition jerseys for the first time against the Timberwolves. Like, they can't stay fixated on the Clippers. They got to focus on what's ahead of them, and you can learn a lot of things. As Clippers coach and former Cavs coach Ty Lue said, it's not, sometimes it's not about wins and losses.
You cutting a promo for those jerseys there, buddy?
It's about wins and lessons.
No, I'm saying you mentioned the jerseys.
Yeah.
Cutting a promo?
No, I just pay attention to the locker vision, and the Cavs teased today as we're recording this on Tuesday that they're showing them off on Thursday, and I'm like,
I know. I just like to troll you and see what I like to see if I can get a reaction out of you. It's fun.
I'm too steady Eddie to really care. But
sometimes you're not. Sometimes I get a little rankle out of you, and it brings me a little joy. Not gonna lie.
Breaks my brain every now and then, but it's more so when you scream at listeners. But let's put a pin in this.
Look,
why don't we move on?
Had it coming. After the break, we're gonna come back. We are gonna dive into Evan Mobley's best offensive night of the season, at least from a scoring perspective. We'll talk about how that worked, where his shots came from, all of that stuff, and more. But first, going to tell everyone about our friends, once I find the overlay that is not loading, at LinkedIn. Today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn, and they want to tell you that these days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps find the right people for your team faster and for free. All it takes is filling out the right information and clicking a few buttons, and you'll be searching for that next great team member. Then, add your job and the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. Finding the right team member is paramount to ending the year strong, and you need the right tools to do it. LinkedIn is that tool. It is why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs number one in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs help you find qualified candidates that you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedInNBA. That's linkedin.com/LockedInNBA to post your job for free. The terms and conditions apply. Okay, back here on Locked On Cavs, I'm Chris Manning. That is Evan Dammarell. I'm going to throw up Evan Mobley's shot chart here as we talk about this. So
I was wondering what this was when I signed into our streaming platform.
Yes, if you look at if you're watching us on YouTube, please subscribe if you haven't already.
Mm-hmm.
Look at where Evan Mobley gets his shots in this game. He didn't take a three in this game. His makes are all free throw line and in. It's a lot of stuff at the rim. And Evan, going back and watching this, his 12 of 18 night, what really stood out to me is that there was a nice mix of looks for him. It's a few transition buckets. Had a nice turnaround bucket over Zubac. Had a nice hook shot. Had a lot of good work in the middle of the floor and in. You saw, Jared Allen found him on a little back cut. Allen finding him for things and some high-low action is a nice little wrinkle that we've seen like one or two times a game this year. That's fun. He only has one really purely bad look in this game. It gets blocked, and when he's loaded up. And when you look at, I think, this game as a whole, it is a reminder that Evan Mobley, I think, is still at this offensive stage where when he has to slow down, load up, it doesn't always go well. Like, he has a botch post-up in this game on Reggie Jackson. The best version of Evan Mobley is going to get a guard twitched on him in the post and just crush him and dunk on him or get an easy shot off. Like, that's going to be an easy 2 points. Right now, teams can like switch a guard on him, and they can be like, "Okay, well, maybe we'll show some help," but they're gonna make him earn it. He has to make that. He has to start punishing that stuff. When you get him in space, you get him moving, you get him really easy looks at the rim, and he gets to get a little space to hit that little mid-range pull-up. Evan Mobley can be a good offensive player and like has the tools to do it. It is just about what kind of spaces he can execute. I mean, you see, like some of the things we had people on our live show on Sunday. Like, is Evan Mobley's offensive game stalled? And it's like, I get being like, you're a fan, you're going to freak out about this stuff, but it's not stalled. He's just good at certain things. And sometimes, particularly maybe on a team with Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland, and against teams that know how to defend him and at the pace the Cavs play, sometimes it can be harder to get him kind of the look shoot that might optimize what he's good at offensively right now.
So Evan Mobley's in an interesting spot. He was the number 3 overall pick, not last summer, but the summer before that, and the Cavs accelerated things quite a bit, just, from how bad they were to what they became when Mobley joined the Cavaliers and just everything falling into place for them. So I think, I understand, like, again, in the micro sense, there are concerns about Evan Mobley's offensive game to open the season. But like Chris said, in the grand scheme of an 82-game season, you're seeing a lot of good against the Clippers. And I think you've seen a lot of good in general with him. Like, maybe in the beginning of the season when he's still kind of like getting back into the swing of things, and JB Bickerstaff noted like this was kind of his preseason at that point when they were playing Orlando during the regular season. They're like, this is still kind of Evan Mobley's preseason because he didn't have the runway the rest of the guys had or this familiarity with the rest of the guys and those live ball reps that he needs. So I'm never too overtly concerned, but like you said, there's certain things he's good at, and there's spots where he's truly comfortable, and the fact that he's just a 7-foot alien who is very dynamic in the pick and roll and very dynamic in space, and like you saw him asking for the ball in post-up situations as well against the Clippers when he had certain mismatches and things like that, where you can see the vision. It's just, you gotta maybe wait for him to unlock a little bit more of that selfish streak of his sometimes, because there's only so many mouths you can feed on this Cavs offense, and the primary offensive hubs are going to be Garland and Mitchell, and then the benefactors of those two just cooking on offense are clearly Mobley and Allen, and then trickle down from there on out. But Evan Mobley has the potential to be the best player for this Cavs team in next to no time at all, and I think just seeing this game against the Clippers is encouraging because you're seeing a lot of his strengths. You saw some stuff that didn't work because he's taking some shots outside of the paint that were jumpers. He did take some mid-range pull-up situations, just like in that spot a little bit too. But like Chris said, he didn't take a single three-pointer against the Clippers, and sure, he wants to add that to his offensive arsenal, but maybe it's still a bit of a work in progress because the mechanics aren't exactly fluid. He has a little bit of a hesitation when he pulls up for his three-pointers, and it's still a work in progress. He was never a plus-plus shooter out of USC, but the potential is there, especially when you look at his brother. But I'm not too overtly concerned, and I think in this game against the Clippers should hopefully calm some people's expectations who are too hyper-focused on the game-to-game aspect of it all.
I don't even necessarily think it's like a selfish thing. I think it is like...
You don't think you don't want him asking for the ball more? Because when you watch some games where like he looks like he's just going through the motions offensively and letting Mitchell and Garland just take shots. Like if you're Mobley and you have a mismatch or an advantage, sometimes instead of just making the extra pass or the smart play that, you know, is the unselfish play, I would like him just to try and take a shot, and like Garland closing in clutch situations. If he doesn't make it, that's fine, but you want him feeling more comfortable taking shots, whether it's a three-pointer, or even if he's hell-bent and determined to take like mid-range faders and things like that. Like if he's adding that to his arsenal and he's making himself more multifaceted offensively, let him just have those opportunities to learn, even if he doesn't make them.
I think it is about like they have to. I think there's two things. I think the selfish thing could come into play if and the Cavs as a team have to feed him if he has to get reps posting guards. Like he has to again hit that Reggie Jackson stuff. Yeah, but the Mobley's best offensive moments are just right now not when you're asking him to load up and ask him to do stuff like that. Like he when he gets a center against him or big against him who's going to body him in the post. He's not strong enough right now to get to a spot necessarily and back that guy down to get a clean look. Like he has to take those fadeaways and stuff. And I think if you're going to try to feature him more as a scorer in some ways and get him kind of moving in that direction, I think it is I think it is trying to maximize the things he's really good around and feed him in those situations, not like feed him that part. I think it is like Darius Garland, the first bucket that Mobley has, they just go off a rebound and Garland pushes, has his head up. Mobley's running down the court. You feed Mobley, and he can get there. If he's gonna be the 5 and play more 5 this year, which he's done so far, throw him some lobs. He had a really nice lob catch and just dunk in this game because he glides through space really well. I think if you see mismatches, I think, and especially if you could find shooting in those lineups, or maybe they add a shooter in the future or something. That there's maybe some juice on that well, and it's going to be something he's going to have to do come the playoffs, come really high stakes games if he's going to maximize his potential. And I think you're right about the reps part. I just don't think Mobley. I don't think Mobley is going to be an offensive player in the way we think of if he's ever going to be like a main offensive hub or like a 2A offensive hub. I don't think the best version of that is ever going to be a guy that we deem as like you throw him the ball, he creates something out of nothing. I don't think that's what he's necessarily going to be.
Yeah,
I would be like very surprised if they if he became a guy like we've talked about this before and it's blasphemous, but like think about how Giannis plays. Giannis screens. He's become a very, very good screen. He bought into the role. Mobley's gonna can succeed. He's gonna succeed more that way than like I have a deep bag and I'm gonna create out of the triple threat position and attack from the wing. I don't think that's necessarily what that is just gonna look like. Is kind of my guess.
I agree with that, and you look how his brother Isaiah operates, and I know they're not the same player, but they are wired similarly, and they kind of have some similarities in terms of skill set, and maybe Mobley isn't going to be a guy that gets you 30 and 10 every single night, or even 25 and 10. Maybe 20 is his apex, but it's like that 18 to 20 range scoring-wise, but you see possibly double-digit rebounds. You see multiple assists, whether it's like 5 or 6 assists, or even just 3 or 4 to start. A couple blocks, a couple steals, and like he's just so multifaceted and impactful in so many different ways because that's maybe how he's wired. And like you said, maybe he does study some of the Giannis tape, and I think Mobley has to bulk up quite a bit to kind of get to that Giannis.
He is not, even just against Zubac, it is just like there is probably another, like, and again, like you don't want to sacrifice somewhat of what makes him special. Like you have to find the balance. I'm not saying just like get him hulked up, but like 10 more pounds of muscle and like just a stronger base.
Yeah.
Like that's just going to help him navigate some of that stuff because again, the league is not loaded with like all of these behemoths anymore, but there are still a lot of bigger centers. And if he's defensively going to man the 5 the best as possible and then also maximize some of this post-up stuff, it is, yes, footwork and all that stuff, but I think like 10 more pounds of muscle would not be like a bad thing for Evan Mobley. I mean, I would like if any player on the Cavs, I would love to know what his actual weight is right now.
Yeah, and it would be an interesting thing to bet on. And speaking of betting, today's sponsor, BetOnline, has plenty of betting lines available for the Cleveland Cavaliers this season.
What do we think the odds are that Evan Mobley weighs above 225?
He was listed at
250. He was listed at 215.
15 last season.
Okay,
well, you look this up. We'll talk about the third segment because BetOnline.net is your number one source for betting football and the start of the new basketball season. Find all the latest player developments, team matchups, news, podcasts, and in-depth analysis on every game. And as always, BetOnline remains your continued source for all your sports wagering information with live betting and up-to-the-minute scores for every sport out there. The fastest and easiest way to check in on all of your favorite games and events, including MLB, MMA, boxing, and golf, is BetOnline. Head to their website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action. For instance, the Cavs are 5-point favorites over Mike Brown's Kings on Wednesday night. On top of that, the Cavs are minus 1,100 to make the playoffs right now, and the third best odds in the East behind the Bucks and the Celtics. You can look at plenty more odds. Maybe Evan Mobley's weight's on there too, and just go check them out today at BetOnline, where the game starts.
All right, we're back. Locked On Cavs podcast.
Give me the odds on his weight, because I am thinking about this now.
Well, those odds don't exist from BetOnline, but they should, and I would set the line at something like 230.5.
I'd take I'd take the under on that.
That's tight. Like that's like, is it possible he added 15 pounds in the summer? I wouldn't. But is it like I have no idea.
I mean, he looks bigger. He looks more like a man than a kid for sure. But he still has just such like a wiry frame to begin with. But like he's still, I don't know. Evan Mobley's just built like a Greek god, but he's not like literally a Greek god like Giannis is out there.
Whereas I'm sure like Luka Doncic weighs like 30 pounds more than Evan Mobley. I'm just like,
you know what? We stand a king who likes fast food, so respect Luka.
Yeah, summer.
Nick Angstack, I hope my check is in the mail for saying that.
Yeah, Luka just hitting the. We haven't seen photos of Evan Mobley hitting the hookah like Luka. Anyway, all right. Well, Cavs news in the world.
I'm avoiding the last subject as much as I can.
No, well, we have.
We have to talk about it.
Well, yes, I'm excited about it. I have a little rant planned, Evan. I'm ready to go. I've got a take in my head that we're gonna get out of the world. Well, first, Chris Fiero of Cleveland.com did report that Dylan Windler is getting a PRP injection into his injured left ankle. That stands for palate-rich plasma. It's his right ankle. Excuse me. He's going to be in a walking boot for 3 weeks after the injection, per the report. So this could be another month that Dylan Windler is unavailable. And on the injury report, he told us, I remember being in the scrum with him at Media Day. It's like me, you, Spin, and Kelsey Russo. And he says, I'm healthy. I feel really good. This was really great. And then he landed awkwardly in a final practice before the preseason opener. We have not seen him since. I just empathize so much that Dylan Windler just cannot seem to catch a break and stay healthy and like get a chance just to be like a normal functional dude.
Yeah, it's tough. You think about what if, like what he could have been, because you always can circle back to that shot he took in the Salt Lake Summer League where he pulled it from nearly half court and just ripped it. And you're thinking like, okay, the Cavs might have gotten something here. It's a guy who needs to develop, but I always do think about the rookie feature I did on him when I was with Forbes, where he says he wants to be a Joe Ingles type player for this Cavs team, and if they could have that now, a lot of their issues would be solved because you have a bigger wing who can rebound, play, make, shoot. It's a shame, and at this point, you just hope he's just right mentally and he's doing okay on the day-to-day, because I think that's the hardest part if you're dealing with it at this point, that there's just constant physical setbacks, but the mental toll that has to take has to be exasperating at this point.
Yeah, you just hope he can like have a functional, like it's not clearly
not even just in a basketball sense.
Yeah.
Like just be comfortable off the floor, like just be like comfortable physically for the rest of your life.
Yes, I agree. And just, if he's ever gonna like just get to maximize his getting to play professional basketball, like it's probably not. I don't think it's happening in Cleveland, obviously, but whether it's overseas or tries to like whatever comes next for him, I'll be hoping he can just stay healthy and figure something out. Okay, so Evan, Isaac Okoro against the Clippers plays 18 minutes. This was more than he's played of late. Obviously, not like a massive amount of minutes, but it's an uptick from what he played. By comparison, Cedi Osman only plays the 3 minutes, 3 minutes and 24 seconds in this game. Here and then you go on Twitter the next morning or after you watch the game and you figure it out. People are like, okay, maybe like Lamar Stevens should get those Okoro minutes, and like how do you play Okoro and all this stuff. And look, here's what I think this is just
I disagree with the Lamar Stevens take quite a bit.
So this is going to be in my run around here. I understand looking at Okoro and being like, look, teams are able to help off of him. It clogs up your spacing. They're going to double off him, and also I get that stuff. If you're JB Bickerstaff and you look at this roster right now, and there's this issue with you need a defensive presence. Cedi's not just going to provide that. He doesn't clearly trust, and that's why he plays 3 minutes in this game. Okoro's the lever you pull for that. And you just have to try to get him going into when he took 4 free throws in this game. That's more than Donovan Mitchell took in this game, so good for him on that, and at least drawing some fouls.
He was out playing Karis LeVert for the better part of the game too.
He is imperfect.
He's
and
flawed, yeah.
And you look at Lamar. I understand if you want to say Lamar's bigger, he maybe can handle some of those bigger wings better. I'm not saying that's not true. He's a worse shooter statistically than Okoro. If you had to tell me who I would trust to make 100 threes first, it's probably Okoro, and I might be there a while. But that's a really tricky place to be. That's not an obvious perfect lever to pull either. This is a Cavs team that is I think probably one more piece away. Maybe it's Rubio, maybe it's another wing, maybe it's both, from really kind of figuring itself out fully. And if you're trying to just pull defensive levers, Okoro is a guy that at least can play that one side of the ball well. He's not all defense, but he's solid and holds up. And that's just a thing that is just part of the Cavs' existence right now. And Lamar, the Cavs coaching staff is pretty smart. They know Lamar Stevens. There's a reason, and the front office does as well. There's a reason Dean Wade gets the contract extension and maybe not Lamar Stevens.
Yeah, and just in the Lamar Stevens sense of things, Lamar Stevens is very good at defending fours, but when you're looking at the Clippers last night, Lamar Stevens isn't going to help you against Paul George. He isn't going to help you against Reggie Jackson. He's not going to help you against Norm Powell either, because the Clippers have an interesting situation where 1 through 3, they're pretty loaded, and then they have Kawhi Leonard just not playing, which makes them even more scary. So you have Okoro who's a little bit more quicker laterally. He's able to defend 1, 2, 3, and then also 4s when you need him to. He's not as prone to fouling as Stevens is, but like you said, more than anything, Lamar Stevens is just objectively a worse shooter than Isaac Okoro. And yes, Isaac Okoro is a flawed player. Yes, he is having a brutal start to the season this year, and JV Bickerstaff has said that's more on him than anything. And I wonder, maybe if you get Ricky Rubio back and you just have a consistent playmaker alongside him, who a guy is not looking to get shots, and maybe you can get creative with it and go super small and play Mitchell, Rubio, Okoro, and Garland with Mobley or Allen as the 5 there, and you run backdoor cuts and you run slashing plays, or you try to get Isaac Okoro just some honest looks. And I think it's more so just finding rotations that work. And in the meantime, while you wait for maybe Rubio to get back to get him more comfortable, to just provide more spacing around Okoro to make him more functional as a player, because there are teams who don't have players as flawed as Isaac Okoro. Like, you look at Golden State, Draymond Green is not a plus shooter anymore, but they won the championship last year despite that. You have, just as like an historical example, like it's a little bit more dramatic because it's Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook, but you have like Andre Roberson, who is not a perimeter threat whatsoever, but he was still functional as a player on the floor and was able to give you some buckets every now and then. And like, again, we'll circle all the way back to the offseason when we were talking about what Isaac Okoro needs to bring to the table this upcoming season. I said 8 to 10 points, and he is just a slightly below average shooter, and you're in a good spot. And it's easy to get just zeroed in on what's going on right now, especially because there's a lot of excitement and expectations are heightened, but there's a whole body of work behind Isaac Okoro too that shows you he is a functional player on offense. It's just he's flawed at the same time, so you have to kind of work through the kinks and just some of the issues to maybe find something that's there that can benefit this current form of the Cavs.
Isaac, the Cavs do not have players that you can just immediately replace them in the rotation. Like,
that's
they just
the other
don't.
issue too. Like, yes, Cedi Osman, but he's starting to come back down to earth a little bit. But he came out this season hot. Karis LeVert's your other wing. Then you have Isaac Okoro. Like, Lamar Stevens isn't getting minutes. Dean Wade is getting minutes, like Chris said, because Dean Wade provides shooting. At his core value, Dean Wade gives you shooting. Like, that's why he gets minutes over Lamar Stevens. And there's no one really else the Cavs can play on a night-to-night basis with a short of Alicia's Okoro, but I understand why he got more burn against the Clippers the other night, because there's Paul George, there's Norman Powell, there's Reggie Jackson, there's even John Wall too. Like, there's a lot of threats the Clippers have, and it makes sense functionally on defense to throw arguably your best perimeter defender out there to slow them down a little bit.
You have to, like, try him in those situations. Like, you just do. And, like, I understand the frustration, and, like, he's going to be a guy that it's hard to be an NBA rotation player when you're, like, not even, like, really willing to take shots. And I still think, like, sometimes they maybe just need to, like, I think, like, you may just have to tell him, like, just shoot the shot if you get, at least be a threat to do it, and maybe that'll loosen things up. But it's the only way you're going to get out of this is either you make a trade, which is not immediately going to happen in the future. That's not how this is going to work. And number two, you are going to just need to try to coax development out of this. Evan, I maybe we should, I want to put a pin in this about, like, development in the G League and stuff to talk about it another day, but, like, I don't know if you saw those Steve Kerr quotes from the other day about development. And
I did not.
He basically was, like, discussing how when the current state of the NBA, it's like in the league now, they are doing the work that 20 years ago college guys are doing, right? So think about this. Isaac Okoro, let's put this in context. I'm not saying this excuses the fact that, like, he isn't as good as you'd like him to be and all that stuff, but let's think about this. He's 21. He will turn 22 in January. He made the right decision to come out because, like, he got paid lots of money. But this was like a kid when he comes out. He had the pandemic. It has been, like, obviously all these really weird circumstances, and it's just a very different development curve. And, like, the teams have to do this stuff. And he's been a guy that went from being on a bad team in year one to an improved team in year two. And now it's like a team that has real aspirations this year. And it is, like, a really tricky thing to navigate this. And the Cavs, you have to find ways to develop. And that's why this stuff is so important. And Okoro is a guy that is kind of getting caught in that churn a little bit right now, I think. As much as you can look at him and feel very mad about it on Twitter and say he sucks and all this stuff, I'm not going to sit here and tell you he's, like, an above average NBA player right now, because I don't think he is. But this is a guy that is in a really tricky position as far as his development goes. And I have empathy for, like, trying to figure that out and being in the situation. I just do.
I have empathy too in the situation, and it is just a curious thought exercise, because at first when you said the G League and you mentioned that aspect, I thought you were going to float the idea of Isaac Okoro going down to the G League just to get some reps and burns, but I'm just like...
Honestly, like, 10 years from now, I hope that, like assignments for guys, like, especially if they're rookie second years...
The stigma associated with being assigned to the G League should be denormalized at this point. I mean, look at Golden State, because I think I thought that's where you're going with. James Wiseman was the number 2 pick, and granted, that's injury rehab. He was down there, but he spent a lot of time in Santa Cruz. So did Jonathan Kuminga. So did Moses Moody. Like, the Warriors have a ton of young players that they just realistically cannot play because they're in an interesting spot. So they're utilizing their player development tools in Santa Cruz with their G League affiliate, the Warriors, and developing guys that hopefully can become part of that rotation. Like Jordan Poole is a product of the Santa Cruz Warriors, and he is a key rotation piece for the Warriors now. And I agree, maybe we put a pin in this, but it is an interesting thought exercise. Like, maybe the Cavs do entertain the thought of sending Isaac down to the G League and just letting him get like actual 30 minutes of live ball reps. But like that's a tough pill to swallow too, because it is a pride aspect at the end of the day, where you have to admit, like, okay, it's just not working. I have to go down to the development league and just get some reps that I'm not going to get otherwise, because Okoro doesn't have the runway to kind of develop and grow still as a player, because the expectations are heightened. And if he doesn't have it, the Cavs will just turn to somebody else who might have it instead, or they just shorten and consolidate the rotation and just play more Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland down the stretch.
Yeah, but look, this is not something that you can just... They're not a position you just toss a former number 5 overall pick to the trash can because like he's not playing perfectly now. You have to try to figure this stuff out as best you can. And look, if the time comes you move on from him, you do. Or he figures it out, and you have to at least give it a longer... you just do. So that's the reality of this. That's just the reality of this.
He is extension eligible this summer, yes.
He is not getting an extension next summer unless it is
so team-friendly. Unless there's a dramatic turnaround and it's team-friendly, like you said. But the Cavs do have the luxury of time on their side, and they at least have another this season and up until the trade deadline next season to kind of evaluate what they have with Isaac Okoro and kind of get like a really full glimpse of it. And maybe they find opportunities somewhere to get those glimpses, but it's piss or get off the pot. If next trade deadline he's still just not looking like the player who can put it together and there's a team who's intrigued with his upside, maybe then you entertain the notion of trading him. And like, I know I talked about this on the other show the other day where like, hey, maybe the Cavs who don't have an overabundance of assets utilize the leverage and the squeeze and the pull of Isaac Okoro being a former top 5 pick in what was a pretty mediocre draft class outside of the top 3 or 4 players. And you use that leverage along with maybe like guys like Jetty Osman or Lamar Stevens' expiring contract as well to maybe go get that rotation piece. And yeah, that's fine. But like Chris said, you don't throw this as an Isaac Okoro out just like that. You need to be doing long and honest evaluation. And I think in Isaac's corner, he hasn't really been given the opportunity for us to say, like, yeah, he doesn't have it, because his minutes have been so sporadic and like you're just not seeing consistent opportunities for him, kind of like you did in those final 2 preseason games where the Cavs rested key players and just gave Isaac Okoro 30+ minutes and plenty of opportunities on offense.
I'm putting an official moratorium or a ban or whatever word we want to use on Isaac Okoro segment for 2 weeks. Agreed?
Agreed. Jake Stevens thanks you because he probably rang the bell several times if he ever puts those in, because I'm not a narcissist. I don't rewatch the show. So we talk about Isaac Okoro's potential a lot of the show, as you guys know. And Jake has joked several times with us that he's just going to do like a dig noise every time we say those words. Yeah,
Jake, do the shame bell if we do it again. All right, thanks again for making Locked On Cavs your first listen every day. This episode was produced by the aforementioned Jake Stevens, who's probably playing Sonic right now. For your next listen, check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast, the biggest stories of the day, plus instant reactions, big game recaps, and the take of the day. It's available in the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. All right, everyone, we'll be back after Cavs Kings.